Breaking news that could affect the crypto market in a huge way. Today we'll be breaking that down along with the ETH ETF and a handful of other things that could guide the market's future very easily. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsor today, Coinbase. If you guys are looking to get in and start your first trade in crypto, and I know you are, you're brand new into crypto right now, you're getting ready to get started, and you're thinking, I got to go set up an account. Well, this is the place to do it. Coinbase, the future of money is here. One of the most trusted places for people to and businesses to buy and sell and use crypto. So make sure and check it out. Here's the cool thing. You can use our link when you sign up. You'll get $200 in crypto. So check that out. Use that link down below. It will help the channel. We appreciate it. All right, let's go into a couple of topics today. The biggest one, of course, is Mr. Joe Biden. The president has decided to go ahead and step down and cease his re-election bid. This was, of course, came out last night on Sunday evening. We saw our afternoon, 1:46 yesterday. Interesting point was this did come in directly on Twitter, on X, and didn't really go into a lot of detail other than, hey, I just feel like this is we want to kind of unify our party and we're going to move forward. Now, immediately he did not endorse Kamala on this particular, I'm sure that was a phased approach, but a little bit later he came out and of course endorsed Kamala Harris, and that will be most likely the ticket head. We'll see if that holds true. It still may be a contested convention over at the DNC, so you'll see some things happening right there. I've decided not to accept the nomination. My very first decision as party nominee was to pick Kamala Harris for vice president. Been my decision I've made. Today I offer my full support and endorsement to Kamala and the nominee of our party this year. So there you have it, guys. Here's the interesting point. We don't really know a lot about Kamala Harris's crypto position. We'll talk about that in a minute because this would get into and could sway a lot of voters, at least on the Democratic side, that have been looking to vote for Trump just because of their single issue situation. And that is all about crypto. Give me a better regulatory environment and get crypto more on the advanced front here in the United States. If you look at what Polymarket is saying right here, the election winner right now still holding at 65%, but Kamala Harris is definitely coming in at number 2 right now at 30%, so we'll see. And of course, there's some other people coming in there too, including Michelle Obama, first time on the list there, coming up over single digits, so interesting stuff. This DNC is going to be interesting here. Another big move over the weekend and toward the end of last week, Elon Musk added laser eyes to his X portfolio or his X profile picture. I don't know if this, and you'll notice this is, it may be something to do with the design of how he put it out, because I don't know that he is fully plugged into this, but usually blue eyes means Ethereum, but this also could tie into the Bitcoin conference that's happening this week. There's a lot of things kind of funneling around what Elon is up to, but it is a very intriguing move on the richest man in the world, or one of the richest men in the world, around crypto and what that might mean going forward. So things could get a little crazy. All right, here's the biggest news of the day, and this is Gary Gensler will likely resign in 2025 after the Biden exit. This doesn't necessarily point that the Republicans would win the White House, but it does allude to the fact that typically when administration changes happen, that these exits occur. A couple of points within the article, Thielen, let me kind of zoom in on that for you guys. Thielen said that the SEC chair typically resigns when a new administration enters the White House. So that could be it. Of course, a Trump ticket would spell disaster for Gensler. The other thing that you have to look at is J.D. Vance. He has been on record slamming Gensler as the worst person to regulate crypto assets. So that in itself might have had a little bit of influence on Gary Gensler when the VP, of course, selection came out last week. So a lot of things playing into this. I think as we watch this play out for Gensler's future, Trump is also making a surprise announcement at the upcoming Bitcoin conference in Nashville. Many people have looked at this as possibly a reserve strategy with use of Bitcoin. There's a lot of rumors going around on that, so we'll be watching that very closely. We will bring you reporting on the Bitcoin conference the best we can. Speculation is high that it'll announce the strategic reserve asset, which could trigger a parabolic rise, of course, in the Bitcoin price. With that, you also have to look at what happened with Bitcoin over the weekend. We'll show some charts here in a second. A couple other points I want to hit on right here. The SEC closed meeting this week. Remember, the settlement potentially with Ripple is about to happen. And if that occurs, this would be the perfect time for Gensler to get out of Dodge, because this is an opportunity, I think, for him to still feel like there is a sliver of a win opportunity here and save face with his next career selection in Senator Warren's office. So we'll see how that goes. SEC Commissioner Hester Pierce suggests Ethereum ETFs may soon allow staking. And when you look at some of the interviews that she's been doing, she's very active. So are we seeing maybe the next, SEC commissioner coming to reality right in front of our eyes? We'll see. This was a recent interview where she was talking about Ethereum exchange-traded funds following their anticipated launch in July 23. So a couple of points to make note of. If Gensler were to make it all the way through his tenure, which is still set for, I think, 5 years, it goes up to 682 days away. But based on what we know now and when the next administration could change, even if it were the Democratic administration, could it still inflict a change on the SEC? That changes things pretty dramatically. Notice the red color there? Maybe the red wave's coming. We'll see. 161 days in, and he could do this any day, of course. We don't know, but this could happen but this would be the most possibly that it could extend out to if a resignation is in the cards. Other things happening out there, Bitcoin could see a potential breakout ahead of the U.S. elections. There's many things that people are looking at around a breakout for Bitcoin. One of them on this is based on volatility, risk assets. Trend will start with obviously we saw with Trump's assassination attempt, also with Biden's recent decision now to step down and endorsing Kamala Harris. So very erratic movements. We'll see, I think, a lot more playing into that. We saw a Solana, skyrocket over the weekend. We saw Avalanche skyrocket. There was a lot of moves on the market, including seeing a $68,000 Bitcoin. So it is ahead of us, guys. We are really going to be, I think, moving into a very interesting time. I want to go to Tom Lee. This is an analyst that's been very bullish on crypto in general, but he goes a little bit further into other things, and I'll explain this and why it relates to crypto. Take a look.
What's more important to you, do you think?
In the short term, it's the political news. But really in the longer term, especially into year end, it's actually the economic news. Markets are very sensitive to, especially the sector level, depending on whether it's a Republican or Democratic taking the White House in November, and then especially all the congressional elections and state elections. So I think that's what you saw last week, is as probably shifted towards Trump. Small caps, industrials, financials rallied. The overlap is small caps are very sensitive to a Fed cut, and really the probability of a Fed cut, that it's finally happening. And I think it's going to look like the October to December 2023 rally, which was almost 30%. This one should be bigger because of the amount of short positioning and the amount of oversold in the Russell. So, 40% by the end of the summer.
I just want to dig into it. Does it make sense that tech, that NVIDIA and Tesla and Microsoft and Apple and Meta should be outperforming as the odds rise for a Democratic victory?
Some of that, it's, day-to-day, it could be noise, because last week you had the biggest down week for the NASDAQ in quite a long time. So I think there is a bit of a dead cat bounce. But to me, I agree with you. I don't think that the FANGs are necessarily a Kamala Harris, taking the White House trade.
All right, so there you have it. Small caps potentially coming in with an inflow of $9.9 billion, second largest inflow in history if you look at small caps out there. Now, why does this matter on crypto? Well, if you think about small caps in the S&P, then you have to kind of consider small caps being on risk assets, the altcoin trade. And this could be really why we're starting to see so much altcoin movement over the last week to 10 days. The question here is, can this extend into the strategy into November? And of course, what would that look like post-November, depending on which camp wins the White House? A lot of things I think are really dependent upon two scenarios. One, of course, is how Trump can respond to a win and what that might look like for the S&P, because that's going to change things from a Wall Street perspective. That's one thing, because we already know his position on crypto. And then the other side of it would be the Kamala Harris campaign. and what she is doing in reference to how she presents on blockchain and crypto, because she hasn't really put out a position on this. So that itself could play into a positive maybe for the Democrats. So a lot of things pushing in on this. Digital Chamber, now, of course, we just had Perry Ann on last week, but she's pushing for VP Harris, urging to take a forward-looking approach toward digital assets. The letter calls on her to include pro-crypto language in the Dem Party platform. This would be a massive move that I think could sway a lot of voters into the Democratic Party if, in fact, they had a strategy that was serious, number one, and number two, had significant positions of people that actually know what they're doing. Because if we're getting just bureaucrats that are not necessarily understanding of where this is going, that I think they have to do it a little bit bigger, more so than what we've seen out of the Republicans so far, because the Republicans have mostly been the ones pushing regulation, pushing what we've seen in DC over the last year and a half. Other things, of course, happening right here, are expecting today for the ETH ETFs. We expect them to begin trading tomorrow. Means we should see a bunch of filings on the SEC late today, likely after or around market close. This will be who is in the race right now. Remember, a lot of starting fees right now at zero. Everybody kind of pushing down to zero, including Ethereum, or excuse me, the Fidelity Ethereum Fund, which I think is going to be the winner here on at least the interim. We could see some movement here with others, but very interesting that Grayscale has now pushed into a zero fee. So you got Van Eck coming in at zero, Franklin zero, pretty much everybody starting out at zero fees with their post-waiver fees accelerating later. All right, that of course means, what does Ethereum do? Does it explode, or does it do the Bitcoin scenario where we see a little bit of a run up and then a fall off? Many people would argue that Ethereum has not had the run up. This was something that Matt Hogan talked about last week, is it has not had the run up that Bitcoin had prior to its ETF, and that is telling a lot because of the strategy that we've seen in locked up Ethereum, available Ethereum, and then just the potential for Ethereum to actually see a post-ETF run. So there's some things here. A couple of points in this article. ETH ETF whales have positioned themselves to benefit from the U.S. spot ETF speculation. A couple of them here, about 122 million, have been moved to centralized exchanges. Some people could be looking for an exit. Sure, could happen. Another 89 million. This kind of breaks it down to 89 million over on Binance and on OKX. And then you've got during early London trading, this was on the 22nd, another whale transferred another 33.6 million over to Coinbase. Doesn't mean that much, really. This is not a lot of money in the grand scope of what's going to happen on the ETF, and more important, what's going to happen on Ethereum as a whole. But it is something to keep your eye on, for sure. Depending the ETH whale dump, the overall amount of ETH held by exchanges was still very negative. That's the one thing you have to be looking at, is the availability, and this is something that's not going to change very easily. So that in itself will most likely pump the price, or at least when you look at it here. All right, so if you guys remember, this is what I'm talking about. This is the Bitcoin chart on the Bitcoin ETF launch day, which was January the 10th. And if you look at the move down on the day of launch, and you look at over that week and period of time, Bitcoin retraced down around 15%. Now, granted, that was just in a very short period of time between the 10th and the 23rd of January, so about 2 weeks. And when you look at that and then compare that to its run-up, which started right there around January the 24th or 23rd, and even before it broke out, we were up almost 32%. Pretty good move, which is really what I think could happen to Ethereum. The only difference is I don't know that we see this little bit of downtrip here. If you look since the actual filing, I mean, running out at 67 right there, you're holding at 44% still on this. So if Ethereum gets any kind of run up like this, that would be a massive move for Ethereum overall. Looking at Ethereum right now, you would think we would continue to see a little bit of movement, but not necessarily been the case on Ethereum, as we've seen things happening right here on the run up, slightly holding its position right now around 3,500. So this is kind of where it's been a little flat, versus something like a Solana, which of course exploded over the last week. Pretty good moves there, obviously, with Solana. Avalanche also exploding over the weekend and the last few days, so up around $30. So I don't know. We're seeing some very interesting trades right now that I think will potentially cause some movement within Ethereum. I'm still on the idea that this will be much more successful than a lot of people think. So we'll see how that plays out within all of that. This was the last prediction here by Nate Geraci. And his prediction is that an ETF issuer will file for a combined spot Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana ETF in the next few months. Man, we're going to get a lot of index-based managed crypto ETFs. It looks like over the next 18 months, I think this could be one of the most active times on these ETFs. And that's going to be good for crypto. It's going to be good for the communities because I think a lot of this will expose a lot of people into understanding what crypto is doing. All right, we'll cover more this week. It's going to be a packed week with lots of interviews, lots of breakouts as the ETH ETF launches. Make sure and stick around here. If you're not in the Diamond Circle, get in on that. It's a great place to get additional content. Follow me out there on X @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.